Join us and Neighborhood Cats for all you need to know about trap, neuter, return, TNR, and colony management. You'll learn the basics and walk away with the tools you need to be successful in helping outdoor cats. Workshops are typically held the first Saturday of the month. Registrants will have the opportunity to earn a certificate. For more information and to register today, go to communitycatspodcast.com.
You've tuned in to the Community Cats Podcast. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Community Cats Podcast. I am your host, Stacy LeBaron. I've been involved helping homeless cats for over 20 years with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. The goal of this podcast is to expose you to amazing people who are improving the lives of cats. I hope these interviews will help you learn how you can turn your passion for cats into action. And today we're speaking with Marisa Hernandez. As soon as she could walk, Marisa was walking the dog food aisle of the grocery store, kissing the bags of dog food with pictures of puppies on them. Ever since then, Marisa has been advocating for animals in whatever aspect she could. Marisa Hernandez has spent the majority of her professional life caring for others. Early on, she had random jobs like a Starbucks barista or retail sales associate, or even baking bread at a local bakery. Marisa worked as an educator helping special needs students with developmental disorders. After moving away from Minnesota to leave a troubled relationship, she and her 3 children moved back to Utah, where she has a loving family and friends. Several years ago, when a friend passed away unexpectedly, Marisa stepped in immediately to keep his small business open for his loyal clients. In 2016, Dogs R Us became Dogs All Day to carry on her friend's legacy and continue to serve the needs of his customers and their animals, providing daycare, grooming, boarding, and love. This opportunity has enabled Marisa to foster out many animals to their forever homes. Now, Marisa is proud to be one of the founding members of the nonprofit organization Ruff Haven, offering animal care to those in need dealing with crisis situations that without help might cost them the relationship with their cherished, beloved pets. Marisa, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So I can hear the dogs in the background, which is totally fine because that's where you are. You're at the facility, so it's good. So you're right at work. But I'm going to ignore those dogs barking, and I'm going to ask you the question: how did you become passionate about cats?
Well, as you can tell, I started working with animals, and we started as Dogs R Us. And we were only taking in dogs. Then we got into the nonprofit realm, and we learned that not everybody has dogs. And we had to learn really quick, me and the co-founders had to learn really quick how to take care of cats. So we brought in some sort of cat experts to build us a great community cat room, and I instantly fell in love with them. I was allergic as a child and not allowed to have a cat, and now I have 2. So we can see how well that went.
Excellent. So tell me about Ruff Haven. Tell me about how it got started. What was the desire? What was that initial spark, that first aha moment that said, I want to create this program?
So kind of the area where I'm at is a transient area. There's it's by the freeway, lots of people coming through. And just because I was here, people would stop in and ask for help. And the original person I helped when I was not a nonprofit was a gal that was trying to get out of the escorting business and just needed to kind of go into hiding, but she didn't have she had 2 dogs. And she couldn't take them with her. And so we housed the dogs for her. We ended up getting them fixed. And I think it was 3 or 4 months later, she ended up taking the dogs back. And that's been about 8 years. And she's just living her cute, happy little life. I follow her on Facebook. And I'm just like so proud of her. And all she needed was a short amount of time. And then the other co-founders had worked in an animal welfare organization that worked with the unsheltered community. And they had stepped away from that organization and came to me and said, hey, animal welfare is going in a new sort of way. We're not just telling people that they're not good enough for these animals, and we need to really be helping people keep their pets and keep the shelters clear for those animals that need it. And I said, all right, I'm in. And I took my experience boarding animals, and they took their experience working with the unsheltered community. And here we are today, 2 years later.
So I'm going to share with you some of my personal experiences with regards to helping folks with their animals. In my case, it's always been cats. And I've fostered many cats for folks who have said, I just need a couple of months to get my act together. And, can I have you foster them for a while, that kind of thing. And I would say in some cases that's worked, and in other cases it has not worked. And I didn't necessarily feel like at that time I really knew enough of what I was doing. I certainly knew how to foster cats. I knew how to love them and how to care for them, but I didn't know, was I supposed to coach the person? How am I supposed to understand like what's a viable, like where's the possible and where's the impossible? Or is there impossible when you're dealing with folks that are in this sort of transitionary period?
Yeah, that's a great question. Initially, one of our co-founders is a social worker. So she really understands the sort of client social worker aspect. And we say that we do so much more social work than, not animal care, but it's equal. And we have a really strict program, and we do only take those that have a firm plan. So being unsheltered does not qualify you for the program. But if you're going to the hospital and you need us to take the cat, or if you live in your car and it's too hot during the summer, or if one of our resource centers, we're fortunate where 2 of our resource centers do take animals, but 1 does not. And that's the family shelter. And so we will take their pets because they're working with a case manager. And, so we check in with the case manager. And then the other thing is we have a weekly check-in. And they're required to check in. It makes them, it disqualifies them from the program if they're not checking in every week. It keeps the bond between the human and the pet very connected, because they have to remember about the pet. It's so easy to just, when I go out of town, I send my dog to the dog sitter and it's great and I don't worry. But these people are really checking in. They're so invested in their animals. Originally, so we offer 90 days of sheltering. And as somebody that does boarding for a job, I thought a lot of people would take advantage and take that 90 days and then come pick up their animals. And our statistics are just not showing that. They're showing that these people are getting their animals back as soon as possible. And we're in the 30 to 40 day range with animals reuniting.
That's very impressive. It's incredibly impressive, actually. We actually did a situation at the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society where we held on to 2 cats for 2 years while someone was in the Army, was over in Iraq, and held on to their cats while they were over there. So that was actually a really good story. I mean, the cats were in foster care. They weren't like in a sheltered environment or, in a boarding environment, but it was really a nice story. Somebody came back from that type of an environment and were able to reunite with their cats. So, those kinds of things are really nice options, but there are challenges. I really like the fact that you've got someone on your board that's got social working skills, because I really think that's part of the missing piece of the puzzle that many organizations may have. I run into that. I still support various families, and I still feel like I'm at a loss because I might be able to help get resources for the pets, but the people need need some support, and I'm just not skilled in that area. I don't have that networked connection and that kind of thing. So I think if any organization's thinking about creating this type of program, should certainly model it after your program to have that social worker component in there. You were lucky because it was part of the founders, but I would think it would be a key part of that for sure. Your organization's only a couple of years old, but yet you have quite a large group involved. How did you get you've got a big board, you've got organizational staff. I mean, how did you grow so fast in 2 years?
Well, let me start by saying our executive director and me, we're both absolutely insane. So that helped. We both have been in animal welfare for a long time, and we both knew what not to do. And so that really helped build this great team. And also our executive director has amazing ideas and just says, hey, let's ask this media guy and see if, and he's a former anchor, like, famous Utah famous anchorman. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's not going to say yes. And all of a sudden she just asks him and Randall says yes. And then our veterinary part, we've got 2 or 3 amazing veterinarians that really believe in what we're doing and work with us. And I also said, well, the burnout rate for veterinarians is so high. We just can't ask her to be on our board. And so just kind of stumbled into it, asked her, and she said yes, because she believes in us so much. And it's just that people are understanding that this is different than just normal rescue, that it's really working with people and pets and just keeping that bond together.
Team Dubert is at it again, and now they have an amazing companion case management module that once again revolutionizes how you rescue animals. Dubert partnered with Dallas Pets Alive and the Spay Neuter Network to build a powerful solution that allows you to manage cases of any kind. Whether owner surrender calls or emails, community cat tracking and reporting, Dubert is the only system that integrates two-way text messaging, automatic follow-ups, and even a rehoming solution that every organization can use. No more trying to manage 10 different technologies when everything is all in one place and tightly integrated. From fostering to transport, fundraising to e-commerce, supply and demand to case management, Dubert has everything you need to streamline your operations so you can focus on saving more animals. Check out the new companion case management module at www.dubert.com/CCM and get signed up today. Ever wanted to quickly connect, collaborate, or problem solve with others in the animal welfare field who are, real people? Look no further than Maddie's Pet Forum. Maddie's Pet Forum brings people of animal welfare together with the common goal to keep more people and pets together. We share ideas, expertise, offer each other support, resources, and more. Visit forum.maddie'spetforum.org/cats. Maddie's Pet Forum. Come for an answer. Stay for the community.
So it's really interesting, you're sort of talking about respecting him for just, Gato for who he was and just the kind of personality that he has. And different cats have different personalities. And I'm sort of trying to feed around here to the fact that, you're in Brooklyn. I think of New York as being a mecca for community cats. There's a lot of trap, neuter, return outside in the various boroughs and that kind of thing. Have you had any involvement with regards to TNR or community cats, just even in your own neighborhood?
I haven't. There's that app Nextdoor, and people are always posting about that they found a feral cat or that that a cat needs rehoming or stuff like that. I admire the people who are out there, trapping and saving and rehoming. It doesn't fit into my life at this time, partially because, I seem to be a one cat person. So it's not like I could bring one home. And the thing that had happened with Gato is that early on in his life, he'd been attacked by a few different cats. So he didn't start off terrified of cats, but he then was. And so having him around other cats, I really had to keep distance. So it's not something that I've brought, other new cats into my home. And I think I'm always sort of conflicted about how do you take care of a cat that is in the street? What's the right thing to do? And watching people put food out and just kind of, monitoring. But if I see a cat in the street, I'm always looking to, see, does it have a collar? Is it, does it belong to someone? And are they missing that cat? First of all, but then also just trying to make sure that it's not running out into the street. But I am not an active cat fetcher or rehomer, but I appreciate the patience of those who do it and the skill that it takes to have a cat trust you. I do think that is an amazing thing. If I've ever been in a circumstance where a non-domesticated animal has approached me or hung out with me, I do think that is a very special feeling, and probably like what your son felt, to sort of be chosen by an animal feels really good. Just as, to hold an infant and have it fall asleep in your arms, same thing. Just to be trusted is nice.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating to try and understand how folks that maybe aren't in the day-to-day world of trap, neuter, return, trapping cats, rescuing them, getting the kittens, just trying to understand, what's the perception of community cats out there? What is it that you see versus what is it that other people see that may have like their community cat spidey sense going out there and that kind of thing. And it's great to know that you're appreciative of the efforts of those that are out there, that you understand that trap, neuter, return is happening out in the community. Obviously, you're more versed in the cat world than somebody who is maybe what would say not be a cat person. But I always try and understand sort of what we as a society are understanding about community cats in the area, because we can think, oh, everybody knows this, right? Everybody knows this, but not everybody. Everybody doesn't know this. They don't know, that an ear tip. What does an ear tip mean? When a little part of the ear is taken off, and means that they're already spayed and neutered, and that somebody else is, looking out for them in most cases, and that kind of thing. And what to do about a litter of kittens that are, do you worry about what age that litter of kittens is? And do you go grab them? Do you not go grab them? What do you do if you hear the mewing kittens, underneath the boxes or underneath a dumpster or something like that? What's the interaction that you need to do? So I always find it really fascinating to talk with different folks to find out sort of where's our common line or understanding, our baseline understanding, where when I first started in this and back in the 90s, I was just like, oh, you call, animal control and they'll just come, they'll trap them, they'll euthanize them. And it's now so great to hear people talking about, trap, neuter, return as being much more of a common and more accepted and more suggested option out there for sure.
Yeah, I think that the internet makes that a much greater possibility. And I think also the way that people are communicating after disasters and making sure that pets are rehomed is, there is greater care about making sure that pets are not left alone.
Yeah. Can you just share a little bit about your playwright work? Just share a little bit about what that's all about.
Sure. I like to write plays about the human condition. They sometimes are comedies. They sometimes are drama. I'm usually interested in looking at a question and figuring out how could I approach that through theater. So the most recent play that I just opened, it actually just closed yesterday, Sunday. Well, by the time this airs in October, it will have been closed for a long time. But my most recent play is called When Monica Met Hillary, and is about an imaginary meeting between Monica Lewinsky and Hillary Clinton. Because I just got to thinking, like, what would these two people say to each other if they were in a room? And I found it really fascinating that they had not ever met, to my knowledge or anyone else's. And just thinking about what is the work that women are often doing to clean up the messes made by men, and how is that done? And it's for women. It's Monica's mother, Marcia, and Hillary's surrogate daughter, Huma Abedin. And everyone is facing that question of how do you move on? A previous play that I wrote was about genocide in Darfur, Sudan. And the reason for that was that it was 2004, and I was working as a news clerk at the New York Times with op-ed columnist Nicholas Kristof. And he was covering the genocide in Darfur, and I had access to all this information because not many people in the US knew that there was a genocide then. And so I had all of this information, and I won a contest to write a play. And so I did. And I also traveled there with him just to be able to see what it was like on the ground and get a sense of that. The play that I'm working on next is about abortion, and it's about the history of it. But it's also about just the semantics that, depending on how you feel about abortion, that one person will say that someone is carrying a fetus, and the other person will say that person is carrying a baby, and that we so often get stuck in the semantics of whether it's a baby or a fetus. And what I'm concerned about is asking the question, how do we take care of the person who is alive, who is carrying, whether it's a baby or a fetus? How do you respect that person's wishes, and how do you take care of what they need? And that we have a country in which that right is so quickly eroding. But I also wanted to look at abortion over time. And it has, of course, always existed. It just at one point got medicalized, and that totally changed access to it. But it will always exist. So since it will always exist, I personally would like to see that it is safe and legal. So this play just explores abortion, but it also has talking fetuses in it. So it really allows for the possibility of holding multiple opinions and exploring what it might be like to try on a different opinion from the one you've always had.
It's really funny. I'm going to take this in a totally different direction than you probably are anticipating in this conversation, but you're talking about these different voices, and animal welfare throughout the pandemic has had a lot of changes in how we handle our operations. Our staffing changed because when we shut down, everybody got furloughed or they left. And so that's a lot of change of staff, a lot of questions around diversity, a lot of questions of providing services into communities, not within communities. A lot of 50-something white women coming in, doing stuff, but not into the community, but not amongst the community, if that makes any sense. So we have a lot of conversations going on, a lot of compassion fatigue, a lot of moral distress. There's lateral violence because of the stress. So there's internal bullying going on, external bullying from social media. And so some of those stresses and the conversations you're talking about in your plays, totally raw, honest, emotional energy within the animal welfare space is happening right now. And it's going to take a long time to recover, feel comfortable, to heal, to resolve, and maybe we won't even get there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in all the places that there are reckonings over inequities or injustices, I think that it's high time that we're going through them, and that we figure out a way to call each other in that process. There's this speaker who I love. Her name is Loretta J. Ross, and she talks about call-in culture, and that rather than moving from a place of trying to shame people, of trying to call them in and figure out how do we talk to each other so that we can educate and move forward without just sort of saying, well, you don't know this, you don't understand this. And it is delicate, tender work, and it involves people sitting in the fire and a lot of discomfort. And the thing is that there are people who have been sitting in that fire and in a lot of discomfort for so many years, while others of us were not. And so, I am interested in all the ways that we all have to reckon with trying to make spaces that are welcoming, that are fair, that are kind. And that means looking at our own behavior and saying, where do I fit in? The theater community is going through that as well, because it is the economics of it are so unjust that it's often a hobby for wealthier white people. And, people are saying enough, change the way this is being done, because it isn't being done in a way that is not just fair, but is best. That idea of that someone else's oppression affects someone else is so true. And so, as a white woman, I'm not out there trying to save someone else. I'm actually just trying to make my life as just and as open and as fair as I am for other people, because I do think that we are linked. But I think that it's really easy to fall into a savior mindset. With the war in Ukraine right now, I had this idea with my book, Not a Cat, because the cover of it is bright yellow and the writing is blue. And I was like, oh, this is the Ukrainian flag. Wow. And there's all these children who you see pictures of them having lost their pets or being reunited with them, and they've lost everything. And my thought was, how do I get this book to Ukrainian refugees? And can I translate it into Ukrainian and donate it to them and all of that? And, my mind races about how would I do that? But the first question is, do those people want this book? Is this needed? And are there other things that would better serve? And so to just sort of step back and take a breath and realize, again, not coming from outside of a community, but finding who's within the community. And is this something that people would need and want?
Yeah, very, very true, very accurate. And it's a challenge. I think it's very much of a challenge in lots of spaces for all of us. So Winter, if folks are interested in getting your book, how would they do that?
Well, the book is called Not a Cat. And if you type into your search engine, Not a Cat and Winter Miller, I promise you that the book will come up. You can look on places like Bookshop or other independent bookstores they'll match you with the bookstore that's nearest to your community, so you can buy local. Obviously, you can get it on the big chains as well, but I think you can get it anywhere.
And we'll make sure we have a link in the show notes to your website for sure, and then people can find it from there. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I'd like to share just that the point of Not a Cat is about letting your cat or your small child be exactly as they are. So when people would come up and say to Gato, oh, he's just like a dog, my point was, no, this is just Gato. This is who he is. And I felt like that as growing up, and just people trying to label me as a tomboy. And I was like, no, I'm an athlete. I'm Winter. This is just who I am. And this is what I want to wear. And this is how I want to be in the world. And so I wrote a book that is for all of those people out there who just want to be who they are. And my hope is that parents in reading it realize, I want to let my kid be who they are. And that's the greatest sign of love. So I hope that this book gets out in the world and that it's a comfort to kids who are trying to express who they are, but that people also realize, we don't have to build bullies. We can teach people to love other people just as they are. And my hope is that this book contributes to a kinder world.
Wonderful. Winter, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for being a guest on the show. And I hope we'll have you on again in the future.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
That's it for this week. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. We love to hear what you think, and a 5-star review really helps others find the show. You can also join the conversation with listeners, cat caretakers, and me on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single show. Thanks for listening, and thank you for everything that you do to help create a safe and healthy world for cats.